Now, this segment is typically dedicated to Democrats and their very interesting interpretations of the Bible. But more broadly, it really is about the religion of secular humanism and what it does to our brains. So that's why today we're going to kind of forego the biblical interpretation of those on The View for a moment, and we'll get back to that maybe next week, because I'm sure they'll come up with some great biblical insights in the future. But today we're going to be looking at conspiracy theorists and the religion of conspiracy theorists as it might be considered, based upon the kind of very deeply held beliefs of some of the people in these different circles. So, of course, first, we have to go to the fake moon landing. So here's our very first TikTok of that.
Alright, firstly, I think somebody needs some explaining to do, because if Neil Armstrong was the first person on the moon, who would have taken this photo of him? Next, here's a photo of Neil's boots on display. However, this was his footprint when he was on the moon. Something's not adding up here. Now, so apparently Neil Armstrong took this photo of astronaut Buzz Aldrin on the moon, but when you zoom in, there is no camera found. Moving on, it's always been a mystery how the flag is up when there's no wind on the moon. Also, people believe, since there's no stars in the sky, that the pictures were actually taken in a studio. And finally, since Neil is in a shadow but all lit up, people believe that they took a studio light to take the picture. But what do you all think?
All right, so I don't have time to answer everything that was just done there, but I don't really want to, because it is an entire waste of my time, and yours. But I do want to try to illustrate something here. So let me just deal with the first couple that you heard. First of all, the boots. So the boots that he showed you in that picture, it seems as though there was something that Neil Armstrong strapped on the bottom of his shoes, if that even was a real picture of his shoes, that you can see here in these pictures of Buzz when he's on the lunar module, and then even further out where you can see, again, if you look closely enough, that he's got these little gray things that are on the bottom of his shoes that have the impression that you see in the moon dust or whatever it is. So it's a little bit ridiculous that we would suggest that these men who just landed on the moon. Now, again, I know you don't believe they did it, but these men just landed on the moon and they don't have the technology to put sneakers on the man. That seems a little bit ridiculous to me. So needless to say, hopefully that debunks that, but it's very clear from the pictures taken of Buzz while he's there on the moon that he's got something on the bottom of his shoes that is helping him with his traction, and that's why that footprint looks like that. Now, furthermore, the damaging one shows that this was a staged moon landing, is that somebody must be taking the picture of Buzz as he's coming off, since he's the first one on the moon. Who's taking the photo? Well, of course, we could probably use a little common sense and a little imagination here and say that, well, there's just simply a camera mounted on the descent stage of the lunar module and it's pointed toward the steps. So there's stuff that's hanging out over to the side here. They take it and they turn it so that they can see Buzz come down and then walk down the steps. So it's kind of how cameras work. Where they're pointed, they can record stuff. So that's where that picture is coming from. Now, I don't have time to get into any of the more of the arguments, but you could look them up yourself and recognize that they're pretty easily defeated, just like with simple common sense and just a little bit of time and effort. So needless to say, we got to get to the bigger one here, which of course comes straight to us from T-Pain himself as he's talking to us about flat Earth theory.
When people say the Earth is flat, everybody thinks I'm joking, and I don't know why people think I'm joking, but well, it's me, so I guess that's why I am.
Yeah. That's why they think you joking.
But when I say, like, I kind of believe this, I just want to know what's on the bottom, what's under it. Like, if this is the flat Earth, what's here? And what are they trying to hide? Why are they trying to keep us from this? Why can't we go over Antarctica if Antarctica is the shit? And everybody keeps saying God. And I'm like, that's where God is? Not the other
I haven't had this
universes?
conversation with anybody.
Yeah, I've talked to BLB about this. He's not super informative.
Now, this is a great TikTok, and the reason I shared this with you is not only do we get flat Earth theory, but we also get the destination and the abode, the living place of God. And the idea that people are blocking Antarctica and there's like a polar ice wall to keep people from crawling to the other side of the earth because underneath there God's hanging out. That's where his man cave is down underneath that flat earth. I got a better question. And again, I'm not a physicist here, but I think this pretty much just dismantles everything with flat earth. And it has nothing to do with God living underneath the bottom side of this flat earth. The question is why doesn't all the water fall out? Like, we know a spherical earth, because of the rotation of the earth, it keeps the water, just like if you had water in a cup and you slung it around, it's not coming out of the cup because of centripetal force. How come all the water, if there is a flat earth, doesn't just fall out from the bottom of the earth? I know, mind-blowing. I don't get it. But the reason I wanted to illustrate all of that for you is because I believe Christianity provides an antidote for conspiracy theorists. First of all, conspiracy theorists and conspiracy theories are predicated upon a priori reasoning or just theoretical deduction rather than priori reasoning, which comes from real discovery, experience, and investigation. So all of these things are just theoretical deductions based upon wild-eyed ideas, and Christianity is based upon truth. Now, I know some people out there, especially Christian conspiracy theorists, they do exist. They say, well, Reed, if you lived at the time of Jesus and you suggested that he was born of a virgin, you would have the same kind of backlash the flat earthers get and the people who think the moon landing was faked. You would be getting that same kind of backlash, and they'd say, oh, you've got a tinfoil hat. Virgins don't give birth. You see how those two things are just absolutely the same, like apples and oranges? Here's the difference, is that actually the evidence that we have from Scripture affirms the virgin birth, and actually historians, even secular in nature, believe that the Bible gives us a great picture of the first century and the things that were going on at that point in time. Now, of course, when it comes to the miraculous, they come around and they say, well, that's ridiculous, that was added later, but these historical events that archaeology proves and that history proves and all these other things that, hey, the Bible keeps on showing up pretty right. They say, well, the Bible's actually a good source of information for the first century, and one of the very few really good, reliable sources about what took place. Now, because it's attached to a religion, there are those who are still in the scientific community, archaeological, all of that, who are a little bit reluctant to believe it, but the Bible has consistently been proven by archaeology and historical findings. So suffice to say, it's very, very different to compare moon landing conspiracy theories with the virgin birth and what the Bible has to say about that. If we're going to be intellectually honest, actually, those secular scientists and archaeologists and whatever would have to come away saying, I am picking and choosing. I'm cherry picking here. I don't like what it says about the virgin birth, but all this other stuff that can be historically proven, I really like that stuff. But when it comes to this other stuff that I'm not so sure about, I just throw it out. See, like, that's not actually an intellectual activity. You would have to lend credence to the virgin birth because of the historically reliable information that you're finding in the Bible. Now, we say, well, Reed, we don't need to do that. We just need common sense, just like you're saying, because virgins don't give birth. Well, then you're having a much different conversation. Now you're making the claim, because there's different claims being made here. And again, it's all about critical thinking. A different claim is being made. Now you're saying miracles don't exist. So now you have to provide evidence that miracles don't exist. No one is saying that the moon landing is a miracle. No one's saying that flat Earth is a miracle. They're actually saying that they have solid proof that can prove that Buzz Aldrin didn't walk on the moon and that the Earth is flat. Well, of course, you can't prove that. I'm not saying that I can prove the virgin birth is real. What I am saying is that there's a difference between proof and evidence. And I can tell you that the evidence that we find in Scripture it provides reliable evidence that the virgin birth took place. Now, the second thing is this. Conspiracy theories merely chase ghosts, and Christianity combats evil. So the reason I think that we need a good dose of Christianity away from conspiracy theories is that we will continue to argue over Buzz Aldrin's boots and whether or not he landed on the moon, and forget that there are children being mutilated all over the United States, and it demands a response. See, conspiracy theorists, they hunt ghosts in the attic while the house is on fire, and Christians come along and say, hey guys, maybe an interesting intellectual exercise to talk about these conspiracy theories, but can we put the house out first before we actually go hunting ghosts in the attic? In the meantime, there are serious issues going on in and around our nation that demand the attention of good and godly people with a moral compass. And the lack of our voices in the public square right now, standing up for those kind of things, is incredibly deafening. So the reason I went through those conspiracy theories in the first place is to just really detail this, that people, when they don't have something to believe in, will fill in the gaps with something else. It may just not be something that's really beneficial to society. And as we consistently shift away from Christianity in the public square and move to secular humanism, we're filling in the gap with these ridiculous conspiracy theories, and they're a dime a dozen. But as I tried to illustrate, conspiracy theories distract from more important matters, from the things that we should really be focusing our attention on. So if you don't want to be distracted and you want to hold fast to the truth, I'd encourage you potentially to pick up a Bible, which may not hurt you, and most importantly, to be dedicated to the truth and dedicated to the things that really matter rather than preoccupying yourself with things that don't. If you're in for that, I'd love to hear from you down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and go with God. So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.